unfortunate that we are having these issues. And like I said, one of the things I'm going to do is that I hope you can also see my screen and the slides. I hope you can see the screen. So I'll record the lecture, and then at the end of the day, I would I'll share it with you, and then you can watch it over and over again. But anytime you are not hearing me, Joseph can just message me or even call on my WhatsApp line. Then I'll know that you are not hearing me. All right. So this course, as we know, is development appraisal. And the essence of the course is just to introduce you to some fundamental issues as construction experts that you want to become. Essentially, most of you are going to end up doing different construction projects. And there are a few things that you need to know. And that is what this course is about. It's not much. It's not a very lengthy course. It's a very interesting but very short course. So I told Joseph that after we meet probably some 4 or 5 times, we would have finished with the course. Given the challenge we are having, I've already recorded the lecture 2 last year and it's there. But whatever I'm going to have with you, I'll also record and I'll share a link with you to watch. The other thing I'm going to do is that next week, I'll give you some of the past questions for the previous years, and then you can use that to practice in groups. So today's session is just to introduce you to real estate. I know you are construction students, but whatever the real estate industry is going to do without you is not going to come into existence. So we as real estate people will come up with the ideas, will come up with the finance and everything. But it's you as construction experts who will put these ideas onto the ground for the real product to be seen. So what is real estate? Real estate is just a combination of 2 legal concepts, real and then estate. If you look at the Relamsa logo, the motto on it is your realty are concerned. When we were forming this association, this was the issue we used to decide the motto for the association. The term real in real estate simply means tangible. When we say something is real, it means that you can see and feel. So, and that actually comes from the term realty, which means land and all buildings that are attached to it. Now, any other thing a person has which is movable, we call it personality. This is not something that is fixed or attached to the land. There is a typo here. It's not personality, it's personality. I'll edit it and I'll send to you. So things like a car, a motorbike, which you can move from one location to the other, you can classify it as real estate. Things like your bank account, your mobile phone, you can pick it from one location to the other. It's not real estate. And the term estate itself simply refers to something you own. That's why when a very rich man dies, they will say they are going to share his estate to his wives, his children, and all that. Your estate is simply your possessions, things that you own. But the aspects of these things that are permanently attached to the land is what we refer to as real estate. So if a person dies, his estate will include his houses, his cars, his farms, even if he has any animals, all of that will be classified as it. But the real estate will be the house, or if he owns any stores, any office buildings, those will be. So the difference between real estate, estate, and personality is what I've just said. Now, you also hear the term real property, which is very commonly used. We use that term because when we talk about real estate, it's not only about the physical land or building that somebody owns, but the rights, the ownership right also associated with that. So for instance, as you are living in your hostel, you are paying rent for the right to occupy that hostel for a year. Within that 1 year period, you have the right to occupancy of the property. So usually, when somebody is coming to buy a land or a building, we are often talking of title, because there will definitely be a transfer of title from one owner to the other. So the rights, the ownership rights, together with the asset, refers to as what? Real property. So anytime you hear the term real estate, it's simply, I've always used two terms. If you are going to look at it in mathematical terms, it's simply land plus buildings. And then when you hear the term real property, land and buildings plus the ownership rights in this asset. Now, moving from this, so I'm just introducing you to some concepts because these are the concepts we'll be using throughout the period of this course. As the title of the course, says development appraisal, we need to understand what development itself means. Even the name of your university has development in it. But when you bring it to the real estate industry, real estate development simply refers to the process of, financing the acquisition of land with the intent of, building on it to either sell or let. So it's not just a one-off thing, it's a process. The process of looking for the money needed to build a hostel, buying the land to build that hostel, building the hostel itself. That is where you, as construction people, often come in. Then getting tenants to come and live in the hostel is all part of that process. And there are multiple definitions for it, which I've provided a couple of them here. Now, development is not only about the hard construction that you do. It starts right from the time when you develop the idea in your mind that, for instance, I want to build a house. The moment you conceive the idea, the development process has started. So right from you, and later on in this course, I'll tell you the two different types of situations that you can face as a developer. So once you get up, you've got some money, and then you say, oh, this money, I want to build a house with it. The moment you conceive the idea, the development process has started. Then moving from there to actually go and, like going to the drawing table to design, getting an architect to design the project, get permit for the project from the planning authority, start the construction, finish the construction, sell it, or get tenants. All that is part of the process. So it's not a very straightforward process. It's a very complex process. Now, this process happens within the development industry. And the development industry is that business activity that assembles resources. This includes financial resources and physical resources to construct new space. To construct new space. So the industry, there's a financial side of the industry. There is the physical side of the industry. The financial side of the industry is lenders. Lenders, banks that will often provide mortgage for people who want to do development activity. It also includes the physical aspects, like you, the construction experts, the local planning authority, the machinery that you are going to use to do the construction, and all of this, the experts. So the development industry is a business activity. There are entrepreneurs in the industry. And it's not limited to only construction. And that is the reason why I'm introducing you to this course. Because before you can even do your construction, there are a number of things that you need to understand. If not, you will do construction that will not, at the end of the day, generate the intended income for you. So the development industry is the business behind the creation of space, the creation and the recreation of space. So there are so many industries that we know. For instance, the industry responsible for the creation of movies, music, and all that, they will call it the creative art industry. The industry responsible for the manufacturing of goods and services, we also name them by those products. So our industry is the development industry. And why is this industry very important? This industry is very important, and it will forever be important because development will never stop. There will always be the need for development to take place. And there are a number of factors. If you've done, usually I teach economics in level 100, and I've always told the students in my economics lectures that I'm teaching you economics because I'm going to use that to teach you higher courses in level 300, and this is one of them. Why do we always have a constant need for development? Why do we always have to build new houses, new schools, new hospitals? One of the factors is the population. Population keeps changing. When Ghana gained independence, the number of people in Ghana is not the same as we have now. Every year when they do the population and housing census, even though people also die, you realize that the number of people being given birth to is always more than the number of people dying. So the population keeps increasing. So once the population keeps increasing, what will that mean? That will mean that the number of households will also increase. And that will be, there will be the need for more housing. There will be the need for more medical facilities to cater for the needs of this population. There will be the need for more universities. As at the time Ghana gained independence, how many universities did we have? But now we have so many universities. And I've seen the government is even rolling out plans to build more. Why? Because the population is increasing, educational needs are also on the rise. There's a need for more roads. The roads that used to be less of traffic within our urban areas. Now, so much traffic congestion is taking place, so they have to build overheads and all that. They have to dualize roads. So construction or development will always take place because of these factors. Another thing is technology. If you look at WA, for instance, if you get the chance on one of the days, if you get the chance on one of the days, behind where the Ghana Commercial Bank is, right from the police station, that road that goes to Airstrip, all the way to ADB, the other one that passes in front of ADB to the market, that whole enclave of Wapani, especially behind the Ghana Commercial Bank, if you pass there, there are old houses, compound houses and family houses there. Today, the younger generation in Wa, like we are the Gen Z generation, we have different, we've seen modern constructions. The world has now become such that you can even be in Wa and see a house design in the US or UK and you like it and you want to build the same. So apart from the population dynamics, the technology is also changing constantly. And that means that there are improved designs, there are modern construction methods, modernized building materials, and people are interested in these ones, which means that they want to try these new dimensions. Apart from that, is the changing taste and preferences. Human beings, our needs and our preferences will keep changing. And these preferences change along certain factors. For instance, if you are not having, as you are a student right now, if you get a single room with one student mattress, you are okay. But with time, when you finish school and you get a job, and if somebody asks you to stay in that kind of room, you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to. When you are alone, as a guy, you don't really care about anything. You can, but the moment you get married and you are beginning to have kids, you want bigger space for the family. So your preferences will keep changing along your status. Now you can afford more expensive accommodation. You've gotten a job, it's paying you income. That makes you begin to think that, oh, now with my status, I need to go for this. There's technological evolution. I want a house with POP ceiling. So all these changes and preferences that will come to your taste will mean that you want to try those new things. So you can see that people are no longer building the traditional family houses that we used to have. Even though the family house is there, you want to build a modern house. So once this is there, it means that there will always be the demand for development. Now, within the development industry, there are participants, and you are one of them. The participants, are the people who create the space or who create these buildings. Then you, the users of the space, the tenants, the people who are going to rent and live in this space, or the people who are going to even buy. Then we also have the regulators of the industry. The regulators will often come in between the creators and the users of the space. So when we talk about this group of people, I've categorized them into two main participants: the private sector participants and the public sector participants. The private sector is often made up of individuals. The private individuals who will either create this space to sell or let, and then the ones who also rent this space to use either for direct consumption, like a house, or they want to rent the space and use it for something else. I'm renting a shop not because I want to use it directly for my own accommodation. I'm renting it because I want to use it to provide a service of buying and selling. So we also have the public participant, and the public participant is actually the central and the local government agencies, these governmental organizations, the district assembly, all the state institutions. They are public institutions and they are public participants. Now, the reason why we need to differentiate between these two groups of participants is that their interests and their behavior in the industry is different. Their behavior in the industry is shaped by their interests in the industry. For the private sector, these are often business people who are profit-minded. The landlords, their participation in the industry is motivated by the rent they can get. Real estate developers, Their participation in the industry is motivated by the income they will get from the development activity. So whatever they are doing, their interest is to reduce risk as much as possible and also maximize returns. Now, when you come to the public participant, like the government, um, the university, for instance, the interest is not really profit, like the public institutions. If it's private universities, that's different. The interest is not really like to make profit. The interest is to be able to provide the fundamental needs of the people. So you see, the state can directly participate in the industry by building, let's say, affordable housing for the citizens, or the state can indirectly participate. The indirect participation is through regulation. So you want to build a hostel. If, like you just heard that, I think yesterday or when, a building has collapsed in Accra, Newtown, a church building. When I saw the building, I was like, so how on earth will people even get the courage to go into this kind of structure? If there's better regulation, that thing will not even be standing the way it is, because the government's interest is to ensure that the citizens are safe. So you can't just design any kind of building, use any kind of materials, and build it anyway, and say you are calling it a hostel for students to come and stay in. So the government will indirectly participate by going through your building drawings, checking all the specifications, like the structural drawing, to ensure that everything is up to standard, and then give you permit to develop. So because the government's interest or the public institutions, their interest is not often like a profit motive, you will see that I often say they are more of interested in the social welfare of the citizenry. Now, let me also tell you something. There are also certain assets that if the state leaves their provision into the hand of the private sector, because they are so important, the citizens cannot even afford them. So the state has to directly, for instance, let's say like a police station, for instance, like prisons where hardcore criminals need to be kept. If the state decides not to build prisons, but they've given that to the public sector, they will build it and they will charge whatever they feel like charging for it. So the ordinary person will not have access to it. So like I mentioned, there is either direct or indirect participation by the public. When the public is actually involved in the development of the space, creating the space, either owning it or selling or letting. Like if you come to, like in this country, in the UK, for instance, there is social housing. The councils, or which is similar to the district assemblies we have in Ghana, they will build housing, affordable housing, and let it out to people who otherwise would have been homeless. So that is direct participation. But they can also participate indirectly by regulating the behavior of the other actors in the industry. So this is what I just mentioned. One other thing about me is when I'm teaching, I'll often speak ahead of my slides. Now, for any development to be good, there should be a balance between the public sector interest and that of the private sector interest. And the public sector's interest is to ensure that any space that is constructed meets the economic aspirations of the developers, and also ensures that the environmental aspect. These days, we are talking a lot about ESG, sustainability, and all that. In fact, next year, I intend to introduce something around sustainability and ESG into this module. So the public and private sectors are often partners in the development process. The state cannot provide everything. So if the state also decides that, okay, we are going to make it very difficult for the private sector, to be involved in the development industry, they will divert their funds into other things. They can go into transport, they can go into sports, they can go into so many other things to make money. And then there is a government that is going to lose at the end of the day. Because if there's a huge housing deficit, who will the citizens blame? If we don't have enough schools in the country, who will the citizens blame? So that is the reason why there's always that friendly relationship or that collaboration between the private sector and the public sector to ensure that development goes on. So as a developer, and most of you are often going to become like developers, your role is to initiate, motivate, and then control the creation, maintenance, and maybe the recreation of space. When we say the recreation of space, sometimes you are doing renovation, you are doing maintenance, you are doing some retrofitting, you are breaking some parts of the building and modernizing it. You are changing the ceiling from plywood to POP, you are changing it from plywood to TNJ, you are changing the floor from like cement screeding to tiles. Now, there are different types of development. When we come, I mentioned that one of the things is that development wouldn't have to harm the environment. Now, any development that is going to take place is going to take place on land. You can't build a house and to be hanging in the air. So you are either going to do a development on a green field or on a brownfield site. So greenfield development is development that is taking place on a site where nothing has ever been built. So if it is a forest where they have not done any construction on it before, and you are the first person going to clear the trees and then the site, which is often what happens in Ghana, then that is a greenfield development. But where development is going to take place, for instance, you are going to redevelop, you are going to demolish a house, in where a lot of that happened some time ago. Somebody will buy an existing house along the roadside, demolish it, and then build like a filling station or something. So the brownfield development, we can have two definitions for it. There's a technical definition for it, which is a site that has environmental contamination. The technical definition will often refer to a site that has like environmental contamination. If it is an old refuse dump you are going to clear and build a house on it, you cannot classify that as a greenfield site because we have used the site for some activity before. So in fact, you would have heard things like a virgin land. Virgin land is what we refer to as a greenfield site. Then we can also have the very common day-to-day definition, which is basically a site that we have built on before, which is the most common. Why is it brown? It's brown because the vegetation has already been cleared and something has been done to the land already. We are only redeveloping it. Now, brownfield site development are of high interest to most municipalities. Most institutions and municipalities are often interested in ensuring that development you are going to do is not also endangering the environment or making our living spaces. Like if you come here, for instance, you see every house has got like a garden behind it, because the essence is that the natural environment, we need oxygen from the trees, and then when we bring out carbon dioxide, they also take that. So imagine that the whole of Ghana, we don't have any trees, we don't have anything. How can we then survive? So this real estate development we are talking about, I mentioned earlier in the definition, it's not a one-off thing, it's a process. In fact, it's a complex and complicated process. So how do we define this process? The real estate development process can be defined as the process where, and in fact, I defined this in a different way previously, where like physical ingredients such as land and buildings are often combined with financial. Now I'm expanding this definition with financial and marketing resources to create an environment that people can live, play, and work. When I ask you for the definition of real estate development, that definition is there. We've looked at it already. When I ask you for the definition of the development process, so it's just like me asking you for the definition of a car and me asking you for the definition of transport. It will definitely involve the use of a car as well as any other thing that can make movement possible. And that is why I'm saying that the development process in definition is broader than development itself. And what does this process do? This process ensures that raw land or property is improved. The development process will ensure that space that is created is very suitable. And it's a very highly creative process. To be a very good actor in this process, you need to be smart, you need to be very creative, you need to be innovative. And you need to be able to effectively combine physical elements such as land and then also financial and marketing resources. Why marketing resources? If you build 10 houses with millions of cedis and your interest is to, make money from it, if you don't rent it out or sell it, how do you make the money back? And you can only do that by effectively getting access to your target users, tenants, or buyers. And that is where marketing also comes in. So every good developer who doesn't have a marketing strategy is not in good business. Now, the development process, there are some key people. First, we looked at the participants, but each group of participants, there are key individuals or roles or job titles within these participant groups. And we are going to look at each of them and their role. So the developer. The real estate developer can be an individual or a company, an organization that secures and control land, comes up with an appropriate project to be built on the land, and also get the approval for that project. So it can be you as an individual buying land and wanting to build a house. It can also be an institution like a real estate company wanting to buy land and build some estates to either let or sell. It can be UBITS as a university, an institution that wants to buy land and build another campus somewhere. Now, very often when we talk about developers, they are at the business side of things. They are individuals who are often interested in like profit motive, but it can also be an institution that is doing it for other motives. For instance, there are NGOs that are into real estate development, like Habitat for Humanity and all that. They started as non-governmental organizations or non-profit organizations, just helping people to try to reduce the housing crisis in the world. Then the builder is another person. The builder is that general contractor. You'll be hearing the term contractor, who does the actual construction. And that is what a lot of you are going to be. You, the contractor, the builder is actually the person who does the actual construction. So a developer can buy land, get the title for the land, come up with building plans and everything for it, get the permit from the local assembly, and then they will open bids for contractors to bid for the project, and then they will say this person has won the contract, and that person is going to do the construction. And at the end of the day, hand it over to the developer or the owner. Now, that person can also subcontract. So we've given you the whole project to build, but you are not an electrician. You are just a construction person. You will build, and then when it's time for wiring, you will now go and get an electrical engineer to also come and do that for you. Then we also have the investor. Now, sometimes the developer can play this dual role of being a developer and an investor. Sometimes we also have this as a separate person. Kwame Despite just has money, and he's not interested in, any development process, or he just wants to multiply his money or generate some returns on the money. So what he will do is to just provide the financial resources for the project. So you can come out from school, you are a real estate developer with all the ideas and everything, but you don't have the money. Then you go to Kwame Despite and say, I've got this project, and if you invest this money, this is how much returns you are going to get. So he can decide to own the project. He can buy the project, pay you off, or give you some shares or whatever in the project, and just put the money in. So most of these people, what they will do is sometimes they'll just put the money, you develop, and then they take over and either sell or give it to other companies to manage for them. And sometimes they can just buy the project. So for instance, somebody can tell you, okay, I'm having an expression of interest in this project. When you complete it, I'll buy. There is this former France footballer. What's the name? The name is Marcel. I think the father is from, or the mother is from Ghana here. And he came and built this like sports complex in East Legon. I think now Kwame Despite has acquired it. So most of the time, investors will not commit themselves until the project has been given the go-ahead to be developed, especially in countries like the UK, the US, where planning controls are very rigorous. Because if I come and put money in, and now you're going to apply for permit, and the assembly tells you that where you want to build this house is on a waterway, where you want to build this hostel, the place has been earmarked for a road project. The developer, the investor has already put money in and will lose part of that money. So they will often want you to come to them and say, oh, I've already got the land, I've also got permit for the development. I'm just looking for the funds. Then that will develop their interest to come in. Now we also have the lender. The lender can be an individual or a firm or an entity that will provide the capital necessary, the financial resources necessary for the project. And there are banks that will specialize in mortgage. Now, the lender will not commit until the project has also been vested with development rights. If you come to a bank that you want a mortgage to go and build a hostel, the first thing they want to see is that you've got the plan for the hostel, you've been given permit to go ahead with the development. Then we also have the property manager. When you do all this process of acquiring the land, designing the project and building, after you eventually develop, you will need somebody to manage it to ensure that the asset lives its lifespan the way it's supposed to be. So if you are going to rent it out, you will often have a facilities manager or an estate manager. In fact, sometimes they even sell it. Even after they have sold it, they often retain the right to continue to manage the facility. Because when they are selling the asset to you, it's often for, let's say, 99 years or whatever lease. Now, real estate development is changing. The nature of development is changing. It's taking an international perspective based on the fact that technology has made it very possible for you to be anywhere and get access to any kind of information. So even in Ghana, developers are going beyond Ghana's building standards and integrating building standards like around the globe because they want those properties to also attract. We get a lot of people coming from the US, from the UK to Ghana and acquiring assets. So if you are building, you are also going to ensure that you design and build in a way that meets their specifications. It's also getting, one other aspect of it is that it's also getting international funding. Monies are coming from abroad, investors are coming from abroad, relatives are bringing money from abroad, like donor agencies are bringing money from abroad. So you can see a project going on in Ghana, but none of the financial resources have come from Ghana. And we also get another internationalization of the development industry is the involvement of international construction firms and experts. So you see a project going on in a country and the developer is from a completely different country. And China has been doing this in so many countries. Now, another factor that has made development take an international dimension is that migration is changing. Previously in Ghana, for instance, even when you come to Wa, at first we only used to have like typical Upper West people, Newali people in Wa. But the introduction of universities, hospitals, things have meant that other people have moved from different parts of the country into Wa. That is the same thing. People have moved from different countries into Ghana. And when they want to build in Ghana or they want to buy or rent, they are looking for space that will meet the needs they've had or their preferences from their home countries. So the development industry and process is highly iterative. It's very iterative. It's not a process where you just start from A and go to Z. You can start with A and jump and go and do C before you come back to come and do B and go back to F and come back. As construction students, you'd have been introduced to what we call Gantt charts, which you use to plan your construction activity, the start time and finish time of different activities. And you can start one activity. It doesn't really mean that that activity will end before you start another. The construction industry is like that. The construction industry is like that. So it's a very iterative process. And the reason why I'm saying is iterative, the iterativeness can be seen in the analysis, the design, the decision making. You can start design. You do your drawings all the way to a stage and say, no, I need to come back and change this. So it's not a linear process that you can just say, I'm starting from this point and ending at this other point. You can start and move to any other point. Or are you having a conversation different from the from what I'm having? All right. So when we talk about development, it will often go through four key professions or four disciplines. The urban economists are involved in it. And the urban economists are people who often be involved in market analysis, space market analysis. Because you can't just get up and say you are going to build a hostel in Wa. You need to know whether there is a need for hostel, there is demand. The current hostels that are there, have they fully been occupied? Do we have some students who are looking for hostels who are not getting and they are perching or they are even living in shared houses. So urban economics will have to give you this idea about the market. Then it also involves people from architectural and engineering background. They are involved in the physical analysis, the structural engineers. Then there are legal and political experts also involved. This thing you want to build, does it align with government policy? Can you just get up and say you are coming to build you are going to build a hotel, or you are coming to build a place in Wa, and then you are going to use it for prostitution or to house sex workers? That is not a policy that the state supports. So the legal and political aspect will involve the planning permits, environmental feasibility, sustainability. In fact, this thing you want to build, how are you even going to manage the waste? Are you going to be discharging waste from the property into a nearby stream? Is it going to contaminate drinking water? If you are saying that you want to build a property and use it as a factory in the middle of where people are living, what will this have? Are you going to emit chemicals in the air that will pollute the place and make the place very uncomfortable for people to live? It also involves financial economics. They are the people who are going to decide whether this project is financially feasible. You came in and you said you want to build a hostel and you want 1 million Ghana cedi loan. But the question is, when you build this hostel, are you going to get people to pay the rent you are suggesting to the lender? And then so that you can make the money back and pay. They look at the financial feasibility aspect, but it doesn't follow a certain order. In fact, it can also cross all these disciplines. So when you look at these three things that I've just talked about, like I mentioned earlier, that the development process involves multiple disciplines. So there's a physical aspect of it, there's the financial aspect of it, and there's the market aspect of it. And I have like a Venn diagram here showing you the intersect. For instance, the physical and the market aspect of the industry, the intersect is where decisions concerning the design take place. You need to make sure that you understand the market, the needs of the market, and design to meet it. Whilst you are making the physical decisions about what you want to build, you also need to know the cost involved. So that is the intersect between the financial aspect of the industry and the physical aspect of the industry. You need to know how much you can get from a bank. You can't just build and say, or just come up with a project and say you are going to collect 10 million Ghana cedis from a bank, when you know that the bank itself, if they lend you 10 million Ghana cedis, they will go broke. So then the financial side of the development process or industry, we also want to understand the market. You can't just come to me and say you want to build a hostel in Wa, but I need to also do my own feasibility and see whether there's a market for that product in Wa before I'll give you money for it. So at the end of the day, all of this will come together to form that comprehensive development plan. And the development plan is not just the physical drawings that you see, every other thing. So let's look at the phases of the development process. The various phases of the development process. There are a number of activities in the development process. The first thing is the site acquisition. Because you can't, build a property in the air. You need to have a site. So activities such as the site acquisition, the costing, the planning, and the control are all aspects of the process. It also involves things like the marketing stage of the project. That is usually, in fact, you don't necessarily need to finish development before you even start marketing. You see the developers today, once they get permit for the project, they will do all the necessary brochures and things and tell you that development is going on. They are expected to finish by this time so that people can show it. So people can actually make payment even before the actual development takes place. Then the leasing of the project, and then the scheduling of the project, the management. The management is also an activity that forms an integral aspect. Management, operations, approval, like all of these things are individual activities that go in. I'll tell you in detail about each of them. The construction, the engineering aspect of the project. So let's take a look at now all of these things I've talked about. We can group it into 6 phases. The first is the study phase, like I told you earlier on. Development, the process starts when you conceive the idea. The moment you have something in your mind that I want to do this, the process has started. And at that point, you are going to do studies. What is it like? For instance, you've got some money, you won a lottery, and then you've got 1 million Ghana cedis. I can use this money to maybe build a hostel. I can also use it to maybe go and buy some cows and kind of be rearing. In fact, somebody can even use that money to marry 3, 4 wives. So those are all options that individuals can have. But which of these options is going to give you the highest possible return? So you need to do some studies around what you want to do. And when you want to do a project also, you need to actually understand the project. And that translates into the next phase, what we call feasibility studies. And there are a number of feasibility studies, or the feasibility phase has a number of activities. Financial feasibility. Is this project financially viable? The project I want to do, I'm saying that I want to build a 10-story building. The site, is the soil able to carry the load of this building? And today we have technology to even allow you to, in fact, people even they claim land in water and build on it. We also have the market feasibility. Will this project sell? Then after the feasibility stage, we move into the pre-construction phase. Then the construction phase, and then the initial occupancy phase. Then finally, the occupancy and investment management phase. So let's look at each of these phases, and then we'll be closing for the day. The study phase involves the basic analysis, like I mentioned. So you are going to, study the location, the site, and all that. You see, when you go to Metro Mass station in Wa, there's this hotel, an uncompleted hotel standing there. We used to call it like Don't Mind the Body. The history behind that hotel is that when the rich Alaji, who is a contractor, at the time he wanted to build that hotel, people were not really enlightened about what a hotel does. So the only perception people had about it is that it's going to be used for like prostitution. And why is a very high Muslim population? So people saw that like the religious aspect of it, and they didn't like the idea. So as it started, there was a lot of resistance to the project. That's what I heard, if it's true. And it led to the eventual abandonment of that project. You see, so if maybe the person had done some study, to ask the people in Wa, if I build a hotel in this town, will you patronize it and all that? Maybe the person would have had some information and probably not do it at that time. Then once you have, done all this study and you are very confident about the site, you can also then move into the feasibility stage. And at that point, what you want to do is a feasibility report. And it's more of like a business plan in fact, it's that report that you are going to sell to any potential investor that you want to get, money from for the project. Then after that, we move to the pre-construction stage or phase. What do you do in this phase? Here you are preparing for the physical construction. You are assembling physical resources. You are getting all the necessary other government approvals. It's not just about having the permit, but there are other things that you are going to bring to the site. You need approval to bring them. You need to also have approval for the noise emission and all those things there. Then after that, at that stage, you're also going to sign the physical contract if you're awarding that to a contractor. Then once all of that is done, we move into the construction. So if after the exchange of contracts, you move into the construction phase where the project is actually built. And that also includes construction management. Whilst construction is going on, it has to be properly managed to ensure that it is being undertaken according to the plan. Then we have what we call the initial occupancy stage, which includes the moving of tenants. And the initial occupancy stage, that's the time when tenants start moving in. They will come and complain that, oh, maybe my shower is not working well. The bulb in this room is not working. This socket is faulty. So all that stage, all these things will be fixed until everything is then sorted. Then the last stage is the actual occupancy. And then probably the investment management phase where you have completely handed the keys to the tenant, they are in, and then the managers are then managing these properties. And the management also entails the renovation and the maintenance. If, for instance, the pipeline that bring water to the property is having an issue, you will then call the facility management team. They will get a plumber to fix that for you. So what is the role of the developer? What's you as the developer? Because everything centers around the developer. The role of the developer in this whole development process is to be that visionary person who will make the project a success. So the developer is more of the manager and the coordinator of people within the development process. If I award a contract to a contractor to do the development, I'm not just going to sleep. From time to time, there will be site visits to see the progress of the project. We also see to it that development is going on according to the idea that I had as a developer. And the developer is also the team builder who will persuade the team to embrace his or her vision. So for instance, before I award any contract to you as a construction expert, would have had series of meetings and presentations for me to show you what I'm looking for you to put you in my mind, for you to understand what I'm looking out for. Because I can't tell you I'm looking to build this kind of house and then just leave that to you and you go and build something else. So the developer is also the problem solver in the development process. The contractor will come and tell you, oh, we have met this challenge. We are building, and then the assembly people came to say we should stop work because we didn't do ABC. The developer would then have to go and chase the issue and deal with it. But there are different types of developers, and this has a connection with the different participants that I already mentioned. And I mentioned this in passing. The developer can be a private sector developer who is very interested in profit. The developer can also be a non-for-profit developer an NGO. So no NGO that is just going on building houses for people. These days we have a lot of them on YouTube doing that for views as well. And then it can also be a public sector developer, like the government, want to construct roads, they want to do housing projects and all that. So the private sector developer is what most of you will be working in, you will mostly be working in the private sector. So there are likely to be more of private sector developers. And mostly your rationale or your motive, like I mentioned at the beginning, for participating in the industry is to earn what we call the developer's fee, which is typically based on, the returns that will come on from the project. So in any development, there will be costs and there will also be revenues. So at the end of the day, you want to pay yourself something. Now, in addition to the development fee, you also earn what you call the reversionary profit on the sale of the property. If today I'm building a hostel to let, and as at the time I was building it, the rents are maybe 2,000 cedis per room of that kind, and I build it and I let it for 10 years. If I choose to sell the hostel, the money that also comes from it at the end of the sale will come to me, and that will also amount to part of the revenues that I'll get. Mostly the development fee that a developer will get is often to pay for the administrative costs, things like food, living expenses during the development and all that. But much of the money the developer will earn will come from the reversionary profits. That's for the private developer. Then for the non-for-profit developers, their main aim is not to make profit from the project. They will often just be interested in the developer's fee, which is to help them run the administrative cost of the project. Now, the reason for this is simple. The non-for-profit developer doesn't have any principal interest, to own the project for any future income or whatever. So they will often target a higher development fee, like Habitat for Humanity and all that. They will build it, but they've got some developer fees that they will get from it. And they are not entitled to any reversionary profit from it. They will often build, to sell. They will often build for the client, and that's it. Now, the private sector, the public sector, they have a different motive, like I mentioned. They are similar to the non-for-profit developers, but they only earn what we call the developer's fee. They are not entitled to any reversionary profit. In fact, in most cases, they don't even earn anything. Like in our government instances, for instance, they don't even earn anything because their interest is just to supply something to the population, as part of their promises, their campaign promises, and what they feel is their requirement as the leaders of the country to meet or the people who are managing the taxpayers' money. Now, next week, when we meet, we are going to look at property market analysis. I told you one of the disciplines in the development process is urban economics. And I said you need to understand the market before you try to develop. If you don't understand the market, you cannot develop. Because if you develop, it means you can't sell. You can't sell that product to make the returns you want to make. So next week, I'm going to take you through the property market analysis. If you want to develop and sell or let, what are the things you need to understand in the market? If you are going to do a feasibility study in a market, what are the variables you should be looking out for? That is what we'll be looking at next week. Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask. And then I think I said I was going to let you have attendance, but I just realized that you cannot scan the QR code and do attendance because you are using your phones. So, but I've seen the number of people. I think only one person did not join the meeting. They said one person is sick, so that's fine. Sorry?
His phone went off. My phone went off.
Oh, okay. So all of you are in the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll often take attendance the day I see like 3 people or 2 people. And that's just it. Do you have any question for me?
No, sir. Oh, please.
Okay, so I'm going to send you the recording and then you can play it at your own leisure time. I'll also send you the link to other lectures. And I'll see you next week around this same time. Next week, or maybe after the 3rd week, I'll give you some practice questions, or maybe 2 years ago exam questions and all that, for you to practice and understand how I often expect. In fact, I'm going to give you one of the year questions and the marking scheme for the questions to that year, so that you can understand, like when I ask you a question, what am I looking for in the answer? Yeah, probably maybe there'll be one question that might be similar to what they did last year or last 2 years. So maybe I'll delete that question off because we'll deal with that kind of question in the slides as an example. All right, so you take care. I know in Ghana is almost it's going to like 7 p.m. and here it's just 4 minutes to 8 o'clock. So because I'm 1 hour ahead of you.
Okay, sir.
All right.
So sir,
yes.
Next week we're going to meet via Zoom or
every week my lecture with you will be on Zoom because I'm not in Ghana. But the only thing is, I want you need to attend the lecture in one space. But if you come again next week and what happened at the auditorium again happens, then the reason why you need to come to a lecture venue and attend the lecture is that the university needs to take responsibility for your safety at the time of that lecture and your participant at the time of that. If you are in your hostel attending the lecture and the environment is not conducive, that wouldn't help. But let's do that for 2-3 weeks and see. If it continues, I'll just let you join and attend it from where you are. I also want, Zoom often consumes a lot. And I also wanted you to use internet that is very stable and strong. And that's the reason why I wanted you to come here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, so that is it for today. You can leave the meeting. I'm stopping